Ahoy, and welcome back to Leia's Library. Find yourself a cozy corner, get yourself something nice and cozy to drink, and let's get started. Happy Pride Month! Yay! To kick off the Pride celebrations, I thought we would do the rainbow book tag, but using the progressive Pride flag as our basis. Which is this flag right here somewhere that I'm gonna put up. So the rainbow book tag is a tag where you recommend books from your bookshelf based on the colors of the rainbow. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. But we're gonna add some extra ones because the progressive pride flag also has blue, white, pink, brown, black, and another yellow. So yeah, there are two yellows in the progressive pride. Why can't I say that right today? There are two yellows in the progressive pride flag. So I'm only gonna talk about one yellow book because I don't have that many. And I'm also gonna be trying to focus on queer books because Pride Month. But I didn't always have one that matched the color I needed. So some of them will not be queer books, but I will mention which ones are and which ones are not. So let's get into it. First up, we have the color yellow for the intersex flag. So for yellow, I chose Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera, which is a YA LGBTQ plus contemporary fiction. It is about Juliet, who is headed off to Portland, Oregon for a summer internship with Harlow Brisbane, author of her favorite book and ultimate authority on all things feminism and women's bodies. And Juliet is determined to figure out what it means to be a Puerto Rican lesbian once and for all. This book is truly wonderful. It's very joyfully queer. And it's also just a really great story about coming to terms with your sexuality and how to discuss that with your parents and your loved ones, and learning that just because a space is safe for queer people doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe for all queer people, and like the prejudices within the queer community itself. And there's also like, it touches on racism as well. There's just so many good things. Well, I mean, not that racism is good, but there's so many good topics and points and ideas brought up in this book is what I was trying to say. And it's truly wonderful. I highly recommend you read it. The next color is white, so I chose Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, which is an adult fantasy fiction. It is about two unlikely friends, Aziraphale, an angel of heaven, and Crowley, a demon, who have developed a very unlikely friendship during the centuries-long time they've known each other, fighting on opposite sides of the Great Divine War. And they've come to enjoy the comforts of earthly living, which is a bit of a problem because the Antichrist has just been born, and he is destined to bring about the end of days when he grows up. So Aziraphale and Crowley, unwilling to, part with their earthly comforts, decide to raise the Antichrist themselves to just be a normal person. There's only one problem. The Antichrist has gone missing. Shenanigans ensue. So this one is definitely not... It's queer-coded, but it's not outwardly queer. And it definitely could be argued that Aziraphale and Crowley are just friends, and that's a very valid reading. But some people choose to interpret their love for each other as a romantic one, which I am a fan of. I also love friendships. Like, that's great. But I love Aziraphale and Crowley. I will say, I guess in the book, they read more as friends, whereas in the show that this book was adapted into reads more as them being a little bit more than platonic. Either way, it's still an amazing book. So yeah. Next up is like Baby Pink, the one that's in the trans flag. And I didn't have a book that was entirely that color, but Dreadnought by April Daniels has that color right here. So we're going with Dreadnought, which is a YA superhero fantasy fiction. It is about Danny, who is a 15-year-old trans girl who isn't out to the world yet, but that all changes when she ends up inheriting the powers of Dreadnought, the world's most strongest, the world's strongest superhero. And as a side effect, the powers give her her most ideal body, meaning Danny cannot hide her identity any longer. And the first book, this one, is about, first of all, she has an arch nemesis to defeat, but on top of superhero stuff, it's also her navigating how to live life in this new body now that she is being outwardly perceived as a woman. So now she has to, her friendships need to be completely reevaluated. She has one friend who is really not cool about the fact that she's a pretty girl now. Outwardly, she always was a pretty girl. But this friend didn't know that, but now that he does, he's weird about it. Yeah, so it's also, Baby's first experiences with sexism and misogyny, as well as Baby's first experience taking down a supervillain. It's a lot, but it's really well handled, and this is one of my favorite series. So, yeah. Next up is like Baby Pink, also from the trans flag. What did I say? Not pink again. Baby Blue, also from the trans flag. So I chose a classic. It's The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, which, if you don't already know, which I would be shocked, is about a man named Linus Baker, who is in his 40s and who lives a very routine life, doing his job inspecting orphanages for magical children, until one day, extremely upper management assigns him to inspect a very remote orphanage that's said to hold the Antichrist himself, in order to determine whether the occupants of that orphanage are likely to bring about the end of days. I know everyone on Book Talk and BookTube and Bookstagram talks about this book, so I won't say anything more about it, but it's delightful. Queer joy to the fullest. Love to see it. The next color on the list is brown, and I did not have any queer books that had brown covers, so I chose The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater, which is a YA fantasy. It is about Puck Connolly, and Puck will do anything to take care of her brothers after the death of their parents, even if it means entering the Scorpio Races, an annual race in which the island residents try to keep control over their couple Ushka, which are these very dangerous and very carnivorous water horses, until the finish line. So, like I said, nothing queer about this, but it is a very good story. The writing is beautiful, and the characters are all really interesting. There is like a little bit of a forced romance, but it didn't actually bother me. So yeah, and it's also, I have such a fascination for like Kelpies and anything that's like Kelpies, so I really enjoyed the Kapelushka in this. I just love the idea of carnivorous water horses. I don't know what it is. And if you do too, you should read this. The next color on the list is black. So I selected, because I once again did not have any queer books with black covers, so I chose The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy and Other Stories by Tim Burton, which is a short story and poetry collection. It's a collection of stories about gruesomely sympathetic outcast children that include such delights as The Boy with Nails in His Eyes, The Girl with Many Eyes, The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy, Voodoo Girl, The Girl Who Turned into a Bed, and my personal favorite, Roy the Toxic Boy. Oh, I have had that book since I was like 16. When I was in like my peak Tim Burton phase. Because you know I had a Tim Burton face. I'd say look at me, but I'm actually quite opposite of Tim Burton aesthetic right now. Anyway, let's move on. Next color is red. So I went with The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, which is an adult epic fantasy. So this is about Lynn, who is the Emperor's daughter, but not his heir. To reclaim her spot on the throne, she must first master the royal family's secret to success, bone shard magic, which allows the user to control beings known as constructs, which are constructed out of various animal parts, by writing commands on pieces of human bone shard and inserting them in the construct. Gruesome stuff. And meanwhile, while all that is going on, there is a revolution brewing outside the palace gates. Again, this is one of my favorite series. I love it so much. And it is not per se a queer story, as in the main character is not queer, and that we know of yet, at least. And it is not about queerness, but two of the POV characters are in a sapphic relationship, and I love them. They are everything. Yeah, so if you like epic fantasies, if you like messed up magic systems that are kind of creepy, if you like sapphics, you're welcome. Next color is orange, so I went with Iron Widow by Xiran Zhao, which is a YA sci-fi fantasy. This is very often described as a mix between The Handmaid's Tale and Pacific Rim. So this is set in a world where there has been an alien invasion, and in order to fight back against the aliens, their solution was to create these giant mecha robots that require a pilot to mind meld with to control. But the pilots all need a co-pilot, which is basically someone that they just drain their chi out of. And because of sexism, the co-pilots are often women and the pilots are men. So a lot of women die because of these giant mecha robots that are called chrysalises. One of them was Wu Zetian's sister, and Wu Zetian is now out for revenge against the pilot that killed her sister, essentially. Only she discovers during her first outing that she is what is known as an Iron Widow, meaning a woman who is capable of reverse Unoing that chi drainage and is able to yank out the man's chi instead. This makes her incredibly dangerous to the whole system, so they pair her with the most notoriously murdery pilot who has killed so many of his co-pilots, not on purpose, but it happens, in order to try to kill her off. But Wu Zetian is not prepared to go out that easily. This book, I love it. I love it so much. And also, it's pretty gay. There is a queer polycule, which I think is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'm so tired. Can you tell? I'm so sorry. But yeah, you should read Iron Widow. Next color is yellow, but we've already done yellow. So we're gonna skip and go to green, which I did not have a queer book for. So I chose A Dog's Life by Anne M. Martin. This is not sustainable. So this follows Squirrel, who is this dog right here. It follows her life from a feral puppy being born in someone's abandoned shed all the way up to her old age. as she passes from home to home and learns about the cruelty and kindness of humans. This is kind of like Black Beauty for dogs. And it's so sweet, and it's very sad, but it also has its very heartwarming moments, just like Black Beauty. So yeah, it's very cute. I really like it. This was one of my favorite books for a long time, and I still regard it very fondly. But several years have passed since I first picked this up, so I have found other books that have taken its spot. But it still holds a very special place in my heart. Next up is Blue, so I went with They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, which is very, very blue, both in color and in content. So in this world, there is a system called Deathcast, which can predict when you are going to die, and it gives you a call 24 hours in advance so that you can live your next, or maybe not 24 hours in advance, it calls you the day before you're supposed to die, so that you can live your last day however you please. And this story follows two teenage boys who have both received a call from Deathcast and who meet up for one final adventure. And it tears your heart out of your chest, and you thank it for it. I don't know if I have anything else to say about it. This is also one of my favorite books. I've talked about it several times already. I feel like it's quite well known at this point, so I don't know how much I have to go on about it, but let me stress that you should read this. Yeah. And we've reached the final color of the rainbow, which is purple or violet. Who cares? And I, once again, did not have a queer book. That was purple. I really wanted to end on a gay note, but I can't, so I chose Poison by Chris Whitting because it's very purple and I love it a lot. So Poison is a YA fantasy horror about a girl named Poison whose baby sister is stolen away by fairies into the fairy world, and Poison decides to go get her back. And along the way she meets a wonderful cast of characters, and I love all of them so much. So much. It's not, there's no characters in here that are queer or even queer coded. I mean, there's no romances, so I guess they could be. Poison kind of gives me Ace vibes. Peppercorn could definitely be bi or pan. Bram could also very much be not straight. The potential is there, but even if it's not overtly queer, I feel like the notion of found families, like the found family trope, which is very prominent in this, is very queer, because a lot of queer people, their real families or their blood families are not it. So they have to find their own. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah, found families, kind of queer. It's in the realm. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say about it because I've talked about this book a lot on this channel. So yeah, if you haven't read it already, you should. I really like it. Thanks. I need to go to bed. And those are all the books on the list for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sure it was painful at times. My bad. Let me know if you've read any of these down below in the comments. Would love to hear about them. And feel free to answer the questions yourself down in the comments. If you'd like to find me elsewhere, you can find me on Instagram as Leia Like the Princess, where you can also find my little embroidery and art store, Moonlit Cat Creations, or you can go directly to its website at moonlitcatcreations.com. And my Fringe show is happening this month! It's very soon. As of filming, we open in 5 days. Exciting. By the time this comes up, we will have already had our opening night. So if you'd like to come see us, I will link info down below. And if you're unable to come, but you would like to support the arts, we also have a fundraiser. So Yeah. Come if you can, donate if you can. If not, thanks for being here anyway. And until next time, stay cozy.